All right, good day, Ingram. On behalf of the information security team, I've been asked to speak with you today regarding the topic of digital forensics. While this specialty has many aspects and is used in all sorts of industries today, we're going to explore the digital crime scene and what that means for InfoSec and all the associates here at Ingram Micro. My name is Brian Russell, and I'm the Senior Manager of the Security Incident Response Team, or the CERT. I'll get a little deeper into my background in a minute. First, I want to share an interesting fact regarding our digital lives today. As a presenter, they always teach you to grab the audience's attention right away. So I thought to myself, great. What am I going to say about a bunch of ones and zeros that's going to be interesting to people across the globe? When I saw this statement from Northeastern University in Boston, Massachusetts, it stood out amongst the rest. I know this fact is from 2016, but unlike other dated references, that fact makes this one even more impressive. The researchers estimated that 1.7 megabytes of data is created every second per person. If you consider the fact that Ingram has approximately 27,000 associates and figure they work an average 8-hour workday, the math comes out to 1.3 petabytes of data for the company each day. You may be saying to yourself, that seems impossible. Even the most productive member of my team doesn't generate that many spreadsheets and that many Word documents. But think about it for a minute. It's not just about the data that we produce purposefully. Everything we do today generates digital data. If you're wearing a smartwatch, it's most likely recording your heart rate, motion, GPS location, and all kinds of other related activity. If you used a security badge to enter the building this morning, you generated data. Every time you log into the VPN or other applications, you generate data. This is data that we don't even think about any longer. So you may have heard about how difficult it is to find a needle in a haystack, as the old cliche goes. Well, as this slide states, digital forensics today is now about finding the needle in a field of haystacks. So why should we listen to what this guy has to say? I know someone wanted to ask that question, so let me give you a little background on who I am and how I landed here at Ingram Micro. I began my career in law enforcement after graduating from college in 1994. I attended the Basic Law Enforcement Academy and started working for the St. Lucie County Sheriff's Office on the east coast of Florida. After approximately 6 years, I took a federal position with the United States Secret Service. It's in this role that I began my training as a computer forensics examiner. I've been a forensics examiner since 2003 and was part of the Miami Electronic Crimes Task Force during the early part of my career. I then transferred to Hoover, Alabama to design and oversee the construction of a 32,000 square foot training facility that would ultimately open as the National Computer Forensics Training Institute. This facility is comprised of 5 specialized classrooms, a mock courtroom, lunchroom, office space, and a fully functional digital evidence laboratory utilized by the Birmingham field office. After 15 years with the Secret Service, I had the opportunity to transfer to the United States Fish and Wildlife Service as a full-time forensics agent in their national lab. This lab was responsible for digital evidence support for global investigations. I had the opportunity to travel the world to instruct and conduct digital evidence examinations for operational support. I retired from the Fish and Wildlife Service in January of this year as the special agent in charge of that lab, and took the position leading the investigative team here at Ingram Micro. Digital forensics is a big component of investigations globally, and it's a big component of our investigations here at Ingram Micro. Okay, so let's get into the discussion today. I'm going to break this topic down into three main areas. First, I'm going to define some terms associated with digital forensics. I'm going to give you the foundational principles in which our digital forensics work is centered. And I'll also talk about what the CERT does and discuss digital evidence sources here at Ingram Micro. Next, I'm going to discuss the concepts of our investigations here at Ingram Micro and how digital forensics plays a role in answering some key questions in those investigations. Lastly, I'll talk about some ways that you can help ensure the security investigations have the best outcome for all involved. So I want to introduce a focal point for this talk today, and this is going to kind of be a theme throughout all of the different parts of the discussion, but really it narrows down or breaks it down into one basic concept, and that is that the collection and analysis of digital evidence is crucial in support of a cybersecurity investigation to determine the who, what, when, where, why, and how of a security event. So let's get into it. What is it? What is digital forensics? Sounds like a lot of terms thrown around, but let's simplify it and get down to what the actual definitions are. As we begin to define digital forensics, let me take just a step back and talk a little about standards within the industry. Like many of you, the business works better if we all have the same understanding of the workflow and are using common language and common terms. Being a global company, this can be directly relatable to working with someone in another country. If you both spoke your own languages, there's a good chance that neither of you will understand what the other is talking about, and productivity will suffer. This is the same in digital forensics. So we rely on a United States government agency, the National Institute of Standards and Technology, or NIST, for some of this common terminology. NIST has been hosting the Organization of Scientific Area Committees since 2014, and the OSAC was established to address a lack of discipline-specific forensic science standards. OSAC fills this gap by drafting proposed standards, sending them to standards development organizations, which further develop and publish them. I had the opportunity to sit on the digital evidence subcommittee for a couple of years while I was working at the Fish and Wildlife Service Digital Forensics Lab. You can see from the graphic that the OSAC is comprised of a number of forensic science areas, from traditional DNA and fingerprint to toxicology, and digital multimedia is one of those sections that completes the circle of forensic sciences. One of the first standards adopted by the OSAC was a document produced by another standards organization, ASTM. That document was titled Standard Terminology for Digital and Multimedia Evidence Examination. This standard terminology is the foundation that allows all forensic examiners to speak the same language. According to this document, we can see that computer forensics is defined as the scientific examination, analysis, or evaluation of digital evidence in legal matters. Digital evidence is defined as information of probative value that is stored or transmitted in binary form. Here we go with the ones and zeros again. It always goes back to that. Understanding some of these base definitions lets us see that computer forensics and digital evidence is more than just looking at a laptop or looking at a desktop. The definition of a digital device shows us that any electronic equipment which can create, process, or store digital data can be subject to examination. Think about how many of those devices you have on you right now that fit that definition. How many do you have in your office? How many do you have at home? In all digital forensics, there are two broad stages of work: acquisition and analysis. These stages are broad enough to cover all types of scenarios where digital evidence is obtained from digital devices. This can be achieved with sophisticated hardware acquisition devices, or might be as simple as asking a server owner to produce some log files. During the acquisition phase, great care is taken to preserve the evidence in the state that it was when it was originally collected. This is the more scientific, process-based phase of digital forensics. When we get into analysis, during the analysis phase, a more artful approach takes shape. There are a seemingly infinite number of tools available to search for digital evidence artifacts. Some are broad in scope, provide multiple functionalities, and others are very specific in their actions. These artifacts that are returned during this analysis phase are used to gain an understanding of the security event. You'll hear this multiple times today. You've already heard it at least once, but they help the team answer the who, what, when, where, why, and how of the investigation. So as in everything, there are steps. There are steps the investigative team must take prior to the acquisition of data. First of all, we need to determine the type of data that we need so we can satisfy any necessary requirements. Here at Ingram Micro, we take privacy seriously, and all data acquisitions will be compliant with all national and regional laws and regulations. In addition to those laws and regulations, procedures are in place to ensure the proper handling of data within the company. The first step there, metadata. Metadata is defined as data about data. So this includes items such as file times, mail, sender, recipient, but does not include file or message content. This type of data is readily accessible and does not require any special authorization. Many times the CERT will need to acquire unstructured data that is in the custody of one of our associates. There's a process that must be approved by the Chief Information Security Officer, the Legal Division, and Human Resources prior to accessing this data. And lastly, the CERT may need to obtain a full disk image of a laptop, desktop, or server. This can be extremely time-consuming and often requires shipment of the physical machine. You may be asked to work with your local IT site support team for temporary replacement devices in cases where your device is inoperable, such as in the case of a persistent malware infection. There are many tools in the computer forensics community available for the acquisition of data. Sometimes these are software programs, sometimes they're hardware devices, but they all perform the same basic functions. Remember, the definition of acquisition is the process of using an access interface to read digital data from a digital source to create a destination object. A lot of words, but simply the acquisition of data, using some tool to collect a data set so that it can be reviewed later. It's an extremely broad definition that accounts for software or hardware solutions. The CERT uses a variety of these industry-accepted tools to acquire data in the most efficient manner possible while minimizing the impact to the business. We're fortunate to have access to a variety of security tools that provide real-time response, like alerting to certain predefined conditions, like malware infections. These tools allow the team to collect data that helps us understand the state of the device, along with network connections at the time of the security event. This data is often referred to as volatile data, and we'll talk about that a little further in a minute. The CERT here at Ingram Micro also has access to software-based tools, such as NCASE from OpenText. This tool is used by many corporations and government entities around the world and can allow for network acquisition of individual files all the way up to entire contents of a hard drive. And finally, we may also utilize a hardware acquisition device, such as the Tableau TX1 seen here on the slide. This is a primary tool for acquisition when the examiner has physical access to the device. These tools are often the quickest method of data acquisition. Let's take a minute and talk about volatile data. Computers are now such an integral part of our daily lives that most of us don't think anything about turning them off at night and or restarting them at any time of the day. We fully expect that all of our files will be there in the morning, right where we left them when we turn the machine back on. However, There's a ton of data that flows to and from each device every second that fluctuates with user and system activity. Examples of this data include network connections with port information and any data stored in the RAM or memory of the computer, amongst others. The definition of volatile data is data on a live system or digital device that is lost after the device loses power. It's important to collect this data as close to the security event as possible, as it can be used to help the investigative team piece together the timeline surrounding a security event. Logs, logs, and more logs, right? Now, obviously, we're not talking about Timber, the logs that are on the screen, but truly one of our most important sources of digital evidence is contained in log files. Every application, operating system, firewall, many other systems has the ability to create logs of user and system activity. The availability of those logs due to resource limitations is often a factor in digital evidence investigations. The ability to start collecting available log information as close to the security event as possible greatly increases the success as it relates to the outcomes of the investigation for the company. And we wait. So this is a bit of an inside joke for an examiner joke. I apologize, but in between the acquisition and analysis stages, we often refer to this section as processing. This is the act of taking all of the raw digital evidence, running it through software tools to increase the efficiency of keyword and other searches. Before we get into some common processing tasks, I kind of want to tell you a story that wraps the first portion of this presentation together about an acquisition that went kind of horribly wrong due to the lack of the common terminology and understanding between the interested parties. When I was a forensic examiner in South Florida, I had the opportunity to work with a lead investigator from out of the district, and they were investigating a digital marketing corporation in the South Florida area, who was initially the company executives and employees were initially very cooperative with the investigation. That turned out to be not the case later, but that's a story for a different day. As part of this cooperation, the lead investigator had been in, talked to the CEO and the IT personnel there at the business. And so as we were preparing to go in, they were going to allow us into the business on a Sunday afternoon to really minimize the impact, as this was a Monday through Friday operation. So in preparation for this, we met with the lead investigator. We asked some questions, and we got with them about how much material, how much data did we expect to have to acquire during this operation. And what was initially stated was there were 9 workstations and 1 server. So we took that information, we took it back to the lab, we got all of our personnel together, we got all of our equipment together, expected to roll in there on a midday on Sunday, and had enough material, equipment, and manpower to get the job done that afternoon. Well, going to that lack of common terminology, when we entered the business, we found that what the lead investigator mentioned as a workstation was essentially a cubicle. And each cubicle contained 2 or 3 desktop computers, and each desktop computer contained 2 or 3 hard drives. The server that the lead investigator was referring to was a server rack that actually contained 9 physical servers installed into the rack. My supervisor at the time pointed to 3 of us and said, "Go home, be back here at 10 o'clock at night." And the short version of the long story is, I believe we wrapped that up about sometime around Thursday morning. So we were in that business for the better part of 4 days, acquiring and processing data. Sometimes it's all about that common terminology, preparation, and sometimes it's just a lot of data. So what are we talking about when we talk about processing? After that acquisition phase is complete, we'll process that data like we talked about. Some of the traditional tasks conducted at this time include indexing, creating an index of character strings for faster searching, optical character recognition, recognizing text that's in graphics or PDF files or other non-text files to make that text available for indexing, file hashing, computing an identifying number for each file to make file comparison easier, file signature analysis. This compares the given file extension, that's stated on the screen, with the headers and footers in the file contained in the data of the file, and flags irregularities or mismatches. Keyword searching. Keyword searching can be done at a number of points in digital forensics, but if there are keywords up front, this can be thrown into the processing phase and save time down the road. And then, of course, file recovery, attempting to recover deleted or orphaned files, which then can be hashed and indexed and included into the overall index for further searching. Okay, processing is finally complete. Acquisition is finally complete. Here we are, we're ready to actually see what we have. Now let's take a look around, see what evidence we can find to identify the details surrounding this security event. I stated earlier that the analysis phase can be more of an art form. There are definitely processes and workflows, but often the starting point is different in each case or each type of case. Sometimes the forensic examiner may want to start with a timeline analysis and correlate artifacts on a particular device with entries in other data sources, such as log files or data received via security interviews. Maybe they want to start by reviewing any keyword search hits. We said during processing that there may be some keyword searches done at that point in time. They're called keywords for a reason, and many times they're generated in other aspects of the investigation. If a particular email was sent with a known malicious file attachment, the examiner may want to see if that file or specific message exists in one or more places on the device. The examination may start with an overall file review. A seasoned digital evidence examiner is very familiar with the standard installations of most operating systems. A quick review of the folder structure often reveals some areas of investigative interest. User activity, such as browser history, file activity, can give a digital forensic examiner a clearer picture of the activity on the device before and after the security event. And Windows is still the king. Like it or hate it, Microsoft Windows is running on a majority of the endpoints here at Ingram Micro, as well as across corporations globally. As of July 2023, Microsoft still held a comfortable lead at just over 64% of all computing devices. Therefore, the Windows registry can be analyzed and provide valuable information to benefit the investigation. So let's take a minute and talk about why is digital forensics important here at Ingram Micro. Security investigations here at Ingram Micro have the goal of reducing risk across the organization. Our investigations are fact-finding missions, and digital evidence exams are a crucial part of the case. After the event is contained, the investigator is responsible for answering those questions: the who, what, when, where, why, and how of the event. This allows the organization to remediate any areas that may have been deficient to minimize the chances of the event happening again. And ultimately, this strengthens our overall network security. It's time to follow the evidence trail. A threat actor's job involves finding a way inside the network. They spend their time attempting to identify vulnerabilities they can exploit. The real key here is the threat actor only has to be right once. Information security and Ingram Micro has to be right every time. Just like every other aspect of business organizations, we all face limited resources. As a result, we use automated alerts and other network monitoring tools to help identify these possible entry points or probing activity. Many of these alerts will never be visible to the end user. However, reporting unusual activity to the Security Operations Center is always welcome. This can include unexpected fan disk operation when you're not actively processing any data, web pages that will not load or load unexpectedly, or links that don't appear to do anything when you click on them. The bottom line is you are the most familiar with the behavior of your device. If you have difficulty with your computer, please contact IT site support. However, if you suspect unusual activity, don't hesitate to contact information security to report the issues. The timing of alerting and reporting will often dictate the type and value of a digital forensic exam. So the investigation is like a puzzle, and it has many pieces. Digital forensics is one of those pieces, and it's often used to corroborate other information from other evidence sources, such as details from associated interviews, information acquired from log files, dates and times of malware infections, or other timeline analyses. Like other items on this slide, this is not an all-inclusive list, but you get the point. Again, the investigation is like a puzzle. Digital forensics can be a big piece. Many times the examination of digital evidence will corroborate other evidence, but sometimes it'll lead us in new directions. When talking about digital evidence, the best evidence is obtained by going directly to the source. We can look at logs and data from security tools, but these shouldn't replace the direct examination of a digital device when it's necessary. Vulnerabilities, misconfigurations, and risk. Oh my. Okay, so that's a weird off reference to Wizard of Oz for those of you that got that. But oftentimes our investigative findings will reveal misconfigurations or vulnerabilities in existing systems. We can use the investigation results to prioritize vulnerability patching or other remediation activities in a preventative manner. We can also look across the environment in order to identify other similar situations that can be remediated before they have the opportunity to be exploited. And just to reiterate, the main goal of security investigations is to reduce overall risk. Our investigations often result in recommended remediation activity. These recommendations are designed to provide actionable activities to reduce the overall risk to the Ingram micro network. So getting into the last phase of this presentation, how can you help? What does this mean to you, and how can you help us? How can you help Ingram in the role of information security? These next slides are going to focus on how you can help information security and minimize the risk for the entire organization. It is important to remember that we're all on the same team. Our opponents are the threat actors, and protecting corporate data is good for everyone. The security incident response team will not be very effective if we didn't have the support and cooperation of many other groups within the organization, including you, if you're asked to participate in an interview or provide crucial data to an investigator. Policies. Wait, well, hold time out. I know I didn't come here to listen to a policy presentation. I know, this is supposed to be about digital forensics. We all know we have plenty of training sessions and email messages and other communication regarding policies of all kinds. The policies at Ingram Micro are in place to protect all of us and our daily activities while we support the organization and the priorities of our respective business units. Policies are in place so that the organization's goals can be achieved. It's important to know and understand all of the organization's policies so that all of our work can be aligned with those goals. I have a standard saying about policies and procedures that you can call maybe a Russellism. You can take it if you like it. It's not trademarked in any way. But procedures, as we all know, are a set way of doing things to achieve a successful outcome of a task or a goal. Policies are generally created because someone didn't follow the procedures. Think about that for a minute. I know this is an overgeneralization, but why do we have things like password policies? The organization has a goal to eliminate weak passwords and strengthen the overall posture of our network security. We're all human beings. Without this policy, someone would, and probably has in the past, use a password that is simple so that it's easy to remember. I'm sure you can all guess, but did you know that the most commonly used password is still the word password? And now with PIN numbers, the number 123456. Those top the list. ABC123 still makes that list as well. This is just human nature, but cannot be acceptable in the business environment. And as a side note, don't use this at home either. It's just generally not a good idea. So why have that policy discussion? Like I said, policies are in place to help ensure data is protected. This involves the timeliness of reporting after a potential security event is identified, not conducting any remediation actions without consulting with information security, and making sure to preserve all information related to a potential event so that accurate information can be relayed to the Security Operations Center. The preservation of evidence is of utmost importance in digital forensics and digital evidence examinations. We utilize the industry standard practices to help ensure the integrity of the data that is involved in those investigations. The CERT investigators will make and preserve master copies and utilize working copies for any analysis. We can use hash verified file containers to ensure the integrity and reliability of the data. And then we also use chain of custody forms to track the life cycle of each piece of digital evidence from the individual investigator who collected it all the way through archive and storage, all with the goal of preserving the evidence and the integrity of the investigation. The nature of digital forensics and CERT activity is normally reactive. The name literally says Security Incident Response Team. We respond to events. That means investigations are conducted after the start of a security event, and most of the investigative activity takes place after the security event is over and containment is complete. So that means someone else outside of the investigative team will usually encounter the actions of a threat actor long before CERT gets involved. Ingram Micro's first line of defense is you. That may sound corny, but that is the absolute truth. I want to reinforce the team concept here and remind everybody, if you see something, say something. That quote, that phrase was coined, or at least popularized, by the newly formed U.S. Department of Homeland Security after September 11, 2001. The message was that the government response to incidents was more effective with the help of everyone reporting unusual activity. Network security here at Ingram Micro is no different. With almost 27,000 associates, our network security efforts are exponentially increased when all of us work together. If you suspect there's unusual activity on your device, or if you received an unexpected email with suspicious links, report it right away. We are all better together. On another note, I also want to discuss a little bit of business continuity. Oftentimes, the fastest method to getting you back online after a security event is a re-image of your device. By storing all of your corporate data in OneDrive, SharePoint, some other shared location, this assures you have access to all of your important files after a machine reset if that becomes necessary. So I'm going to tell you another story from my experience as an examiner in digital forensics, where help from the end user would really have contributed to the case and potentially kept a lot of unnecessary actions from occurring. This case involves a large online retailer suffering a distributed denial of service attack. A denial of service attack is simply just one that the attacker attempts to submit enough traffic to the website or to the application to essentially make it inaccessible to legitimate users in an attempt to harm the company or harm the target. So this DDoS attack was conducted on a major online retailer with a large botnet component. A lot of random infected computers out across the world coordinated to target one particular website or application. The lead investigation was again coming from another district, and they identified a number of IP addresses of computers that were responsible for the activity and the network traffic. I was assigned as part of an investigative team to do forensic support, and I received information on an address related to one of these IP addresses. Myself and the lead investigator got together, did a little research on the address, found out who lived there, how long they lived there, what the basic story was before knocking on the door. We identified the customer of the ISP as a retired U.S. Postal employee, had lived in the household with his wife and two either late teen, young adult children. And there really was nothing extraordinary in the background of this location or the individuals at this house. So my partner and I decided to take our equipment, take our notepads, and just go knock on the door and see if we could get some information. They allowed us in. They agreed to an interview, and everything was very cordial. It was very clear from the outset that they weren't very technologically savvy, and in fact, the owner of the house, the retired postal worker, basically said he used the computer just to check his old hometown newspaper. Other than that, he really didn't do much on it. I asked him where the computer was kept. He said it's right out there in the living room. It doesn't even have a password on it. No problem. I asked him if I could take a quick look, see if I could see what was going on, and they authorized that as well. I sat down at the computer and jiggled the mouse, and as stated, screen came right up. There was no password. Screen looked pretty normal until I looked down at the system tray down to the right where the clock would be traditionally on a Windows machine, and I noticed just a little gray bar, very small gray bar, just looked out of place with everything else that was there. I took the mouse, clicked on the little gray bar that was over above the clock, dragged it to the middle of the screen, and it was the antivirus notification warning of a malware infection, possibly a Trojan horse malware infection, and as the story goes. So their solution, the point to this story was their solution was to ignore the problem. They got the warning. They knew there was an issue. I asked the family why that was down there, and the response was, well, it just kept popping up, and every time we closed the window, it would just come back, and it would come back so often that we couldn't do anything with our computer. So we found that if we just dragged it off to the side, we could go about and use the computer like normal. Their solution was to ignore the warning. The lesson here is within a corporate environment, within Ingram Micro's environment, we can't ignore the warning. I can't say it enough that we lean on you as the front line to help us and help information security when there are warning signs. That couple, that family, that infection could have absolutely led to the theft of their credentials. It could have led to the theft of their credit card information. It could have led to a lot of things. But in this case, it led to a situation that affected many other people. It affected another company. And that's not uncommon, obviously, in the corporate environment. It might not just be your machine that is affected by a security event. And by ignoring the situation or trying to fix the situation, you might actually be hurting another unit or hurting more of the company by doing so. So by all means, please never, never, never ignore the issue. If you think something is going on, please report it. So let's kind of wrap this up and talk about some conclusions of this presentation. Digital evidence is all around us, right? The forensic investigator has many tools at their disposal, but has to filter through a vast amount of data to locate small details that are required to retell the story of a security event. All associates can help by handling data properly and in accordance with current information security policies. This includes ensuring corporate data is backed up appropriately, the timely reporting of security events, and the participation in investigative interviews. Watch your step. As user activity occurs, digital evidence is in a state of constant change. Temporary files, network connections, system memory, and other artifacts that are considered volatile may contain key investigative data for the forensic examiner. It's important to minimize or cease your activity on digital devices that are involved in security events. The tracks you leave before, during, and after a security event will be visible to the forensic examiner. More importantly, your tracks may cover the tracks of the threat actor, making it more difficult to investigate. So let's bring it back to the main focus of the talk today. And just to restate the focal point, the collection and analysis of digital evidence is crucial in support of a cybersecurity investigation to determine the who, the what, the when, the why, and the how of a security event. In addition, we also learned that security is a team effort. Digital forensics, like other aspects of investigations, provides the best results when issues are reported promptly, devices are handled properly by their custodians, and qualified forensic investigators can collect necessary data to answer the crucial questions surrounding a security event. I want to take a second to thank you for listening to me today and allowing me the opportunity to come and talk to you about digital forensics and digital forensics here at Ingram Micro. Thank you.